Welcome to the Ryder Realty Podcast. Many times, buyers and sellers coming into the market don't know what to expect, have lots of questions, and don't know where to turn. That's where we come in. We want to be a resource to teach you the ins and outs of real estate to help you be more informed, more comfortable, and feel confident that you've picked the right realtor. So sit back and enjoy today's content. So today we're going to talk about open houses, and I feel like there are two different perspectives of that. There's the seller's perspective and the buyer's perspective. However, for the most part today, we're just going to focus on the buyer part. The reason being, I feel like the seller part is so area specific. So I have experience of buying houses and having a license in two different states. And in one state, an open house is a complete waste of time. Your buyers don't come from there. It's oftentimes just people who are curious, or maybe they are going through open houses to decide if it's even one they want to see or not. Usually the point of them is to get exposure for the buying agents or the listing agents or the other realtors so that they can hopefully get a buyer out of it. It's not necessarily for the seller. And I think that's kind of catching on in that area because a lot of sellers don't want to have them. But in another area where I have a license, it's like a huge deal. Like it's every weekend, multiple houses. I was going for a walk in one of my neighborhoods not that long ago, and there were, I think, past like 5 open houses just within a 5-block area of my house. Every house literally that was on the market around me had an open house. So I'm not going to get into that. That's something that you should ask your agent about because it is so area specific. So because of that, today we're going to focus on the buyers and how they can use or not use open houses. So first, I have to tell my story. When I was growing up, I loved going to open houses. Now, this was in the 80s. I was probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I don't know how it all worked then, other than I begged my parents to go, and they did not like to take me. They kept saying no. They'd always say, no, we don't want to get bothered. We don't want to get bothered. And I said, okay. And then there were rare times they would take me, and I soaked up every minute, and I loved it. I loved picturing which room would be mine, where my stuff would go, where the rest of the stuff in our house would go, imagining riding my bike around the neighborhood and meeting new kids. Might also be because I lived in the country and we didn't have a ton of neighbors. And I also thought it would be fun to have a cool job like the real estate agent showing the house. In fact, my entire life since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a real estate agent. I don't know if that's common. I've met several kids as I've done this over the years who have thought the same thing, which I think is really cool. So, but my parents hated going. They were not in the market for a house and did not want to get bothered with a bunch of sales calls. In fact, I remember one time, I won't even say the cousin's name, but one time we came back from an open house and my dad started laughing and said he wrote one of his cousin's names down and their phone number just to not get bothered. So when I go back and say I don't know what open houses were like in the 80s, they might have their agents might have really gone overboard and bothering people, or my parents just didn't want to be bothered at all. I don't know, but that was their story of open houses. To them, it was a nightmare. To me, it was a blast. So I wanted to bring you up to speed today, now that you know kind of my background, and let's talk about if you are a new buyer or you've never been to an open house. Let me tell you what you can expect so you can decide if it's right for you. A big positive about open houses is that people are so busy. It's a great way to see a lot of homes at one time on typically a less busy day than other days of the week for making an appointment. So for example, for us with kids in school and sports practices and things, our family schedule doesn't really settle down until about 6 or 6:30. And so if I was in the market for a house and I had that schedule and it gets dark at 5 or 6 or 7 some nights, it might not be ideal for me to see during the week. If I had a young family, same way. Maybe I'm getting home from work at 5, like they're going down to bed at 7, whatever. That can be a busy time for a lot of people. Whereas on the weekends, even though people do have busy weekends or activities, there tends to be more time, especially during those daylight hours, or like on Sundays, a lot of people will go right after church where you can hit those open houses. You can see a lot of places at one time. You can do it at your schedule, and it can just be easier in the terms of the negative is that there is zero privacy. So that means that you might run into a coworker or somebody else that you know, or a neighbor of yours who doesn't know you're thinking about selling. They're going to know all of your information in terms of, Sally and Harry are going to be maybe selling their house. And if they have a big mouth, that might not be fun. It might be fine, but some people, I've had lots of buyers over the years who want to protect their privacy. And so they don't like the showings like that, or the open houses like that. Also, you might not be comfortable necessarily because there are so many people or an agent you don't know. Not that the open house agent is going to be pushy or disruptive or in your face all the time, but you might not feel comfortable asking them certain questions or, looking around as much as you might if it were the agent that you've built a relationship with that you're working with. Just a comfort level thing. So it depends. If you're somebody who just wants to get it done in hours that are convenient for you, or you just saw a sign and thought, hey, let's stop by, that's great. As long as you don't mind that you may not be as comfortable because you don't know the agent there, or you might also have a lack of privacy. Now, those aren't always the case, either one of those, or maybe they're both the case, but this is just that would be the negatives that I would see and that I have seen in people going to an open house rather than schedule a showing with their agent. Some tips: if you do go to an open house, if you do decide to go, let your agent know. That way they know that way they're in the loop. So if they sent you a house that they think you would like, and they call you to book it, they're going to know that you've already gone or are going to the open house. If you go to an open house of a house that was not even close to what you were looking for and they didn't send it to you, then they can ask you questions like, oh, well, what did you like about that house? That's not really what you're looking for. So that if your criteria has changed some, they can update what they're sending you. So that helps keep them in the loop. It also makes it easier for them to ask follow-up questions to the other agent that you might have asked or want to know. They can ask for you because they're your agent and they will be representing you. I've also gone to open houses with my clients. So if we try to book an appointment, let's say for 3, and an open house is from 1 to 3, the agent might say, hey, can you just come at 2:30? Or can you come right at, during just sometime during the open house? If the clients don't care, I'll say yes. Or sometimes we just go in because we're together and that works out. So your agent going to an open house with you, as long as it works out for everybody, is also an option. At the end of the day, it's just whatever's best for you, because that's who they are looking out for as the buyer and the person who may or may not want to buy the open house. So again, if you want privacy, book it with your own agent. If you enjoy going and just like to go to open houses like I did, then that's great. I have met people over the years who still love to go to open houses, or can never buy, don't want to buy, but go to open houses. I have one client, I sold them a house about 18 years ago. And for the first probably 12 or 13, she'd send me Christmas cards, or I'd see her and she'd say, hey, just want you to know we still go to open houses, but we have no intention of buying. And they are still in the house that I sold them. They just like to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. I can appreciate that. Like I said, I did it. It's a great way. It's kind of an easy, cheap date, right? Take your spouse, grab some lunch, hit open houses, or grab dinner after, and just have some fun with it. So those are the positives and negatives of an open house that I've seen over the years, more on the buyer perspective. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to answer those. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. If there's anything we can help you with, please reach out. All of our contact information is on the show notes. Have a blessed day.